We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including lots of offseason trade and free agent speculation. Today we're looking at the future of Mitch Marner, looking at Leafs defenseman Morgan Rielly. Plus, the Islanders have a new GM. Could one of his first pieces of business to bring in a member from his old squad, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Plus, we'll take a look at some other news around the NHL, including the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, we know the Panthers, again, have hammered the Lightning in 2 games of that series, plus the Oilers and Stars get ready to do battle in Game 2. Plus, we had an interesting press conference today with the Toronto Maple Leafs and Keith Pelley, the CEO and president of MLSE, with some interesting comments which might give us an indication on how the future may go for this offseason in Toronto. A lot coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Let's get started first with a quick recap of what the latest happenings here in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, last night we saw another complete dominant performance from the defending Cup champion Florida Panthers, once again crushing the Carolina Hurricanes at home with a 5-0 score. The Hurricanes can't get anything going. They did have one goal last night, but it ended up being overturned. And, well, They need to find their game and find it in a hurry. Even Coach Rod Brindamore said he didn't even recognize what was going on the ice in the first period, that they were completely away from their structure, completely away from their style of play and everything. The Panthers have just been the by far better, more dominant team. And so far that series is not looking close at all. The Panthers are greatly outscoring, outplaying, getting better goaltending, and just everything has been better in every aspect of the game. So we'll see if the Hurricanes can find a miracle here and make this a closer series as this series now shifts to South Florida. Game 2 of the Western Conference Final goes tonight with the Oilers and the Dallas Stars getting underway. Currently in the second period as I record this video. It's a 1-0 Edmonton lead at the moment. Also the Memorial Cup getting started here today, one of the toughest trophies in sports to win. Of course, the host team, the Rimouski Oceanic of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, is hosting the 3 league champions, including the Moncton Wildcats, the Medicine Hat Tigers, and of course the London Knights. The first game tonight features the Medicine Hat Tigers, which of course has a lot of really interesting prospects that will likely become future NHLers, including Gavin McKenna, who's expected to be the 2026 first overall selection. You can see some other players on that team as well, including Ryder Ritchie, Andrew Basha, Caden Lidstrom, Tanner Molendijk, and others as well that are likely going to get good opportunities to make the NHL. Of course, they're doing battle with the host team, Rimouski Oceanic. Currently, that game right now is 3-3 in the third period as I record this video as well, with about 15 minutes left to play. Trying to flip back and forth and watch as much of that as I can while still trying to take in as much as the Oilers game tonight here as well. Big news today in Long Island with the Islanders announcing they have a new GM. The search is finally over, and they've hired former Tampa Bay Lightning assistant general manager Matthew Darche, which I think is a great choice. Darche is a up-and-coming executive in the NHL, highly regarded, highly respected, and like I said, just a fresh new voice, not a recycled executive that's been around the block numerous times. Like we saw Ken Holland be in Los Angeles. Of course, they're in a completely different spot with their team and roster, and they wanted something different. But we see a lot with GMs and coaches that a lot of the same people get hired over and over and over again. So it's kind of nice to get somebody new in there, to be honest. And I think after a long stretch of Lou Lamoriello, and obviously, Lou did a lot of good things for the organization, but it's just time for change. It's time for a fresh voice, and I think Darche can provide that. Of course, he had a 10-plus year pro career playing in the NHL, a lot in the American Hockey League as well, including winning a Calder Cup championship, and then in the last I believe 5-6 years he's been with the Lightning organization as a director of hockey operations, and later got promoted to AGM, and has done a phenomenal job. You ask around anybody who's worked with him and knows him, he's considered one of the, like I said, the best of the best, and got nothing but great things people are going to say about this guy. Been the right-hand man for Julien Brisebois, one of the top GMs in the league, for a very successful organization in Tampa. So hopefully he can take all that experience and bring it to Long Island and do good things. He's going to walk into the first overall pick in the 2025 NHL draft, so that's going to be good. Something like that, you already had a luck go on your side without even being there. Your goal really is just don't screw it up. Make sure you take the right player that's going to lead your franchise into the future. And that's the last thing you want is the first overall pick turn into a bust or something like that. Right now, things are pointing towards Matthew Shea likely being that guy, but of course, we don't know exactly what his thoughts are going to be. Of course, Darche, like I said, long history being around the game. At this point, it looks like he's going to be the only hire. Word out of Long Island is that he will report directly to ownership. So we'd heard lots of speculation about the future of now former president of the Leafs, Brendan Shanahan, maybe being involved and jumping into a president role with the Islanders organization. And to be completely honest, I'm not completely sold on the idea that Shanahan may not work with them in some capacity here down the road. Obviously nothing here right now, and they want to make sure they made it known that Darche is going to be the only hire. He's going to be solely responsible for hockey operations. So again, could they add a guy like Shanahan later? Maybe. They certainly don't feel the need to rush into that, and we'll see where that goes. But obviously, having a first-time new GM, I thought they may want a more experienced executive and as a president around. Of course, Marc Bergevin was also the, I guess you could call him the runner-up or the finalist for this job. Had multiple interviews and was heavily considered. He will remain with the Los Angeles Kings as an advisor to the new GM there, Ken Holland, who was hired last week, who was also in the mix for the Islanders job. Ultimately decided that the West Coast was better for him on a personal level, and I think he also, given his age, wanted a team that was closer to being a championship caliber team. The Kings obviously, I think they're fair to say that they're, if you had to say which team was closer to winning a championship, you would pick LA. But I honestly think the Islanders can turn things around quickly. I really do. I think between what's available in free agency, making a few trades, which I know is easier said than done, getting the first overall pick, like there's a real chance here that they could really get this team retooled and be much better as early as next year, if not the year after. So we'll see what we can do. It's speculated that one of Matthew Darche's first pieces of business might just be to bring in another promising top prospect that is currently right now has his rights owned by the Tampa Bay Lightning, but is not expected to sign there. And that's Isaac Howard, the Hobey Baker winner from college hockey this past season. Julian Breezeball, the GM of the Lightning, have made it known that Isaac Howard is very unlikely to sign there and could very well end up back in school next year. He could end up delaying this to the point that he becomes a free agent, or they end up trading him first. So it's very likely, I would think, that the Lightning are going to trade him to try to recoup something. If they don't sign him, they will get a compensation pick back in the form of a second rounder, so it's not like they won't get anything. So that's probably going to be the asking price, I would think. And obviously Darche would be familiar with this guy, would have been involved in the decision-making to take him as a draft selection as well. And for a team that needs more prospects in its cupboard, it only makes sense to me that they could give him what he's looking for and give him an ample opportunity to make the roster in the fall. I would think Darche's first order of business here will be to probably try to continue to move on a few of these veteran players and kind of, you need to start turning over the roster a little bit more and get some more younger skill and speed in the lineup. I think that's fair to say for sure. Also, another big order of business will be determining the future of head coach Patrick Waugh, who at this point, I believe, my guess is he's going to stay on. He has a long-term contract, and I don't imagine ownership is going to want to pay Waugh to not work for them for that many years. I would suspect Darche will work with Waugh for at least a while to see where things go. But, looking at the team's results and everything, I think they can probably fairly acknowledge that that it's really the roster as much as the problem, more so than the coach. Obviously, a lot of people are speculating that Darche and Waugh, both being French-Canadian, will work together just fine and get along, and he'll probably keep them. I don't know if that's fair to say just because they're both from the same province, and obviously both French-Canadian. That doesn't really mean much to me, but I think more than anything, that Waugh wasn't there very long. He's got a longer-term contract. just doesn't make sense to move on from him here just yet. I think you want to try to give him a better roster to work with, see how the development of the younger players that you're bringing in can go, and then kind of have a more definitive future-based decision at that point. So we'll see what happens, but I suspect that's how things will likely go here, but we'll wait to hear from Darche and then see what happens. A few other quick updates of news items around the NHL today as well. We found out today that Alexander Ovechkin, the captain of the Washington Capitals, has been announced as the winner for the Mark Messier Leadership Award that gets handed out every year. Obviously, Ovi had a heck of a season. Obviously tracking down Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record was, a very important milestone for him to reach. And a lot of people didn't think he would do it this year. I know I didn't. I at the beginning of the year, one of my bold predictions that I always make at the beginning of every NHL season, I said that he would have a good year. He would come close, but he would be short. And I went with it being 8 goals short just because he's number 8. And I thought, well, that might be just a fun number for that purpose, but that's what I was thinking. I was like, you know what? I think he's going to get close, but be just a little short, and he'll probably break it early next year. And it's going to be a big story for 25-26. And especially when he broke his leg, I was like, okay, well, my prediction's probably going to come true. And then look how he pushes through and comes back as a just complete madman on a mission and just scoring a ridiculous rate at his age, which is phenomenal. And you could see how much his team wanted it for him, and he certainly did a good job at rallying them together, and they had a really big bounce back season. So I think Ovechkin definitely deserves some recognition for his leadership, and you could see how the team gravitates towards him and follows him. So well-deserved award here, in my opinion. We also found out today the candidates for the NHL Jim Gregory Award, which is for the General Manager of the Year. The 3 finalists include 2-time winner Jim Nill of the Dallas Stars, along with Kevin Cheveldayoff of the Winnipeg Jets, and Vil Zito. Zito, of course, the GM of the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Now, that's voted on by their peers, and obviously it doesn't come out until the playoffs, so they have a chance to see all their work, and did their work that they did allow them to get into the playoffs, and they have early success in the playoffs, and they can factor in those types of things. I know I've seen a lot of chatter online wondering, what did Kevin Cheveldayoff do? Why is he on this list? Well, clearly his team won the President's Trophy, and I think he's got the respect of his peers. Sometimes it's not the moves you make, it's the moves you don't make, but he's done a good job keeping the team in Winnipeg together. A lot of good contracts there, and I honestly don't think Cheveldayoff is going to win, but I think he deserves some respect and some acknowledgement for a great season in Winnipeg. I think either Nill is going to three-peat or Zito will win. The Mikko Rantanen trade that Jim Nill pulled off very well may have sealed it. He's done a phenomenal job there in Dallas the past few years, but we'll find out at a later date who is the winner. Big update today as well from RG.org reporting that there could be a big move happening in the Rangers organization, and they may be getting themselves a very key member to help with their goaltending, and that's Rashid Davidov, who's a very well-known, very prominent, well-respected Russian goalie coach who's worked with a lot of the top Russian goaltenders, just won a KHL championship in Russia with Lokomotiv, but he's worked with likes of Andrei Vasilevsky, Sergei Bobrovsky, Igor Sorokin. He's worked with Yaroslav Askarov, and of course Igor Shesterkin. Many of these guys still work with him on occasion throughout the summer months as well, doing different camps and things back when they have their time off away from their NHL clubs, and he might be heading to the Big Apple to join the New York Rangers. The interview he conducted here says that it's a little bit complicated, that he still has, obviously a younger family and kids, wife, and everything to consider. So it's not a slam dunk for sure thing that's going to happen, but there is discussions, and it might be something that we see, which would be a major win for Igor Shesterkin to get, with a guy like him and somebody who's quite familiar with him to be able to help him out throughout the year. So it could be a major thing to help him stay on top of his game. So we'll see how things go on that front. As I mentioned as well, the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, MLSE CEO Keith Pelley had a press conference here today, this afternoon, talking about kind of debriefing his end of season stuff, talking about the dismissal of Brendan Shanahan and the future of the club. He was on his own today. He recited the fact that Brad Treliving, the GM, They considered doing a joint presser here together, but it just wasn't going to work out. Brad apparently is in Calgary for his daughter's graduation, so they are going to be meeting on Sunday, he says, and kind of going over some more of the things with the team. And Brad is expected to speak to the media sometime early next week, probably Monday or Tuesday, and that should hopefully give us a little bit more of an indication on some of the things we should expect, or at least to get more of a, opinion from him, how the season went and what changes need to be made here going forward. But what we learned from that press conference from Keith Pelley, a couple of things. One, they don't plan to replace Brendan Shanahan. This is going to be a streamlined version of a front office with Brad Treliving, you could say, kind of getting a bigger role, but not really. He's just going to report directly to Keith Pelley and not have Shanahan as a middleman. So Shanahan's not going to be replaced. With what we've seen with MLSE, I honestly think being mostly owned by Rogers once that sale is completed, which we don't know if I think it's going through regulatory approval right now, and Rogers will own 75% of the Leafs. I think we're going to see a lot of cutbacks. I mean, Rogers has made layoffs. We know that they just dished out a new contract here for the NHL rights. It'll kick in here down the road. I honestly think with what they've done with their other teams, between the other sports teams that they own, I don't know that we're going to see another president anytime soon. So he didn't really say for sure that they wouldn't replace him ever, but for right now they had no plans. And I think we're going to see a lot of the other support staff trim back. I think we've seen the Maple Leafs especially really exploded during the Kyle Dubas era as the GM of the support staff, the analytics, all these AGMs, player development, just completely exploded. And we've often heard them flex their muscle of there's no salary cap on this type of staff, so they have deep pockets. We can spend as much here as we're able to. And that's all fine and dandy, but where has it gotten them? That's kind of the questions now that ownership is kind of asking, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of that stuff kind of scaled back. I mean, they're still going to have a big support team. They're still going to have a much more expensive front office than a lot of other NHL teams, but they can whittle it down and they can kind of condense things and save some money for sure. But Shanahan, not going to be replaced. Treliving and Pelley will both have bigger roles, you could say. One thing he did touch on as well that was, I think, probably the main highlight that came out as a positive was recognizing that they need to improve player relations with the fan base as well as player relations with the media. Talking a lot too about how there's a lot of people who have a hard time getting in that have still never been inside Scotiabank Arena, getting tickets and all that. And just how they handle all those things. So I mean, that was certainly something that I think was well received. But he also went on to say that Craig Berube is a very, very valued asset. He apparently met with him directly here in recent days. So it sounds like Craig Berube is going to have a much bigger voice than most coaches. And I know as much as I think a lot of the fan base believes in Craig Berube and Brad Treliving, looking around what some other people are saying, like looking at the structure of a lot of other front offices here, like Berube's got no experience dealing with the managerial side of the game. Keith Pelley really doesn't either. Brad Treliving's been a GM for a decent amount of time and has done an okay job, but is this really the best setup? Only time will tell. But a couple other comments from Keith Pelley that I thought were interesting. One, they were talking about pressure and did some of the players kind of crack under the pressure, which is a common thing in the playoffs. He said pressure is a privilege. I like that quote. I was like, you know what? That is right. It is something that's, if you're in a position to be under pressure, it should be looked upon as a good thing. Well, not everybody can handle it well, which is the problem. But he also said change is really hard, and he felt further change will probably be needed to get us to the next level. That concerned me as well. We've heard all the things that Craig Berube said at his presser on how much he likes Mitch Marner and John Tavares, and he'd love to have them all back and all that. It just kind of gave, I think, a lot of people vibes of, geez, maybe besides Shanahan, are they going to try to run it back again? Time will tell. I don't know. There's going to be lots of things that are out of their control, like Mitch Marner's free agency, that may not allow them to do that. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. But overall, the press conference from Pelley was, Like I said, a lot of the things that were mentioned were a couple good quotes and stuff, but I don't know. It just kind of gave me vibes of what we've heard before. So it's going to be one of those things that we just have to wait and see, I guess. Another quick update as well. The Pittsburgh Penguins are getting closer to naming their new head coach. Apparently it's down to, or at least it sounds that way from what we've heard, down to 2 candidates. And that is DJ Smith, former head coach of the Ottawa Senators, current assistant coach in Los Angeles. Of course, knows Kyle Dubas as well, the GM of the Penguins, because they both worked for the Maple Leafs before. DJ was an assistant there before he got hired as the Sens head coach. And Mitch Love, of course, was formerly of the Flames organization, who went on to be an assistant with the Capitals this past year. So we'll see what happens when the Penguins make their decision here soon. Now, we know the Los Angeles Kings were getting a little frustrated at being first-round exits, and after parting ways with Rob Blake, which was a mutual decision, they went out to get the experienced guru Ken Holland to come in, who they thought was their best chance to kind of make some bold moves to get them over the hump here, while they feel like they still have a good solid winning window open, especially with some veterans like Kopitar and Doughty still in the mix here for the last few years of their career. Ken Holland conducted an interview with Pierre LeBrun, of course, who works for the TSN and The Athletic. And some of the quotes from Holland certainly make it sound like he absolutely plans on being very aggressive. He is not going to be afraid, which we know what we've seen in his past, to make big, bold moves. And it sounds like that's what the Los Angeles Kings were probably sold on for hiring him to be the next general manager, knowing that they need a few new, different pieces to get this team over the hump and have a chance to get out of the first round and do some real damage in the Western Conference playoffs. So some expectations are that they are going to be, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be successful, and it doesn't mean that they're going to be the only ones, because I think there'll be a lot of interest here, but I think it's expected that they will push to try to be a contender for Maple Leafs forward Mitch Marner. Like I said before, I don't know that 31 other teams are all going to be inquiring on Marner. I think he's a type of player that rarely comes available through free agency. So I think most teams will at least, kick some tires and check in. But there's probably going to be at least half the league that seriously wants to make a real pitch. And I think for Marner, he's going to have a lot to consider, not just around money, but around what's best for his lifestyle if he does indeed decide to leave the Maple Leafs. I mean, Los Angeles is a completely different animal as far as market and lifestyle and all that. So we will see. Again, doesn't mean for sure that they'll be successful, but we do know that Holland wants to be aggressive, and it's believed that he will have him in his sight lines come July 1st, assuming Marner doesn't re-sign with the Maple Leafs beforehand. Now, speaking of the Leafs, lots of chatter around defenseman Morgan Rielly. He's the longest tenured Maple Leaf, and lots of talk out there today amongst various NHL reporters and insiders that they feel he could be a prime trade candidate, especially now that Brad Treliving doesn't have Brendan Shanahan above him. We could see more change. I mean, obviously, a lot of people believe that when not only Treliving, but Dubas before him, that Shanahan prevented them from making any serious trades involving certain players on the team, including the core four, and to some degree maybe Morgan Rielly as well. Now, Morgan Rielly does have a no-move clause, so for this to happen, he would have to play ball and he would have to agree to a trade. But, at this point, a lot of people think that Rielly has slowed down a bit, which I think it's fair to say. He was certainly didn't have a great playoff for sure. He led the team in being on the ice for high danger chances against, which is not a category you want to be leading in. I think if you look at Brad Treliving's history of reforming the blue line, which he's done a lot of in Toronto, I'm not really sure he kind of meets the criteria as being somebody that Treliving would be overly fond of. I'm not saying he hates Rielly or anything. I just know that based on what he likes, I'm not sure that Rielly's really providing, and he's not a power play one quarterback. They ran most of the year on a 5-forward power play. You make it $7.5 million, the highest paid guy on the back end, who is your best, supposedly your best puck mover, and he can't even get on the first power play. To me, it's just not good. It goes to show you that, he's not the defenseman that he once was, and I'm not really sure defensively he was ever really super, super good, but he was more of a great skating puck mover, and this seems like that is not as good as he used to be. Obviously, lots of speculation about maybe Vancouver, considering he's from BC. Would he consider a trade back home? Obviously, I don't even know for sure if the Canucks would want to do that, but regardless if he ends up there or not, he has 4 years left on his contract at $7.5 million. So it's a lot of money, a lot of term. Not going to be easy to do, and if Morgan wants to play hardball and stay, there's not going to be much they can do about it, but it is believed that they will talk to him about that possibility and see what they can figure out ahead of next year. And obviously, I think we're going to see lots of stuff around the Leafs, especially with all the changes we've seen here already. We know Shanahan's out. Trey Living's going to have a little bit more freedom to kind of do what he thinks is best. I mean, Keith Pelley made it known today that he's not a hockey guy. He can be a sounding board. He can, offer advice and whatnot, but he trusts Brad Treliving to make the decisions on player personnel. So I don't know that he's going to be overseeing a ton, but when it comes to certain players, I suspect he would probably run things by him and get a sign off before that could be the case. So we'll see. Obviously, lots of interesting names out there for sure. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.